Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Triangulation is brought to you by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Triangulation, episode 133, recorded for broadcast Christmas Day, December 25th, 2013, the best of the year. Well, hello, everybody, and a Merry Christmas to you if you celebrate Christmas. Happy winter solstice if you don't, Festivus, whatever it is you're excited about. We are going to take a little break this week, as with all the other Twitch shows, and show you some of the best moments from 2013. Triangulation is our interview show where we get the most interesting people together and get to talk to them, get to ask them questions, find out what they're thinking. It's really a fun show for me to do because I love the chance to get these great minds thinking and talking. And we have some pretty amazing moments from the year. So without further ado, these are moments you picked as the best of Triangulation 2013. Enjoy. Roger McGuinn. Roger, everybody knows, of course, the founding member of the Byrds, the folk rock trio that wrote so many great songs, some of which recorded later by Bob Dylan, and he's been a geek for some years. Last time we talked, you made a solar refrigerator, I think.
Yep. Well, we went totally solar after that. We got solar panels on the roof, and now the solar refrigerator is a Sub-Zero. So
that's nice. But you learn a little bit about how a refrigerator, which cools things, could be made to work with the sun, which heats things.
Work with the sun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got into solar panels on a big scale, and then I finally got so many of them. They were on the driveway, and I told Camilla, my wife, I'd love to get it up on the roof, and she said, well, if you're going to put it on the roof, let's just do it right. So we got a contractor, and we did the whole roof with solar panels.
Are you fully off the grid? It runs pretty much everything. Are you completely off the grid?
Not completely. We grid tie because we sell back to them, but our electric bill is basically zero. We pay for a surge protector and administrative charges, and that's it.
How fun. Yeah. So Roger's also an inventor. He's holding the guitar that he invented, which is a 7-string.
Right. It's got an extra string. Let's see if you look at the headstock. You can see there are four tuning pegs down on the bottom and 3 on the top. And the extra string's right in the middle. And the idea behind it is I wanted to get the best sound, the sound of a 12-string. The thing that I like about the 12-string the most is this pair of strings here, which goes like... You might recognize that riff from George Harrison.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then it's also
it's almost like a drone.
High.
Is it like a drone string?
Well, it's an octave. You could call it a drone because the 2 strings are vibrating kind of in unison, but they're an octave apart. So it is a droning effect, yeah. So it gives that kind of bagpipey sound.
Right.
Well, that was always my favorite part of the 12-string. We did this riff with the 12-string, and I didn't want to fly with the 12-string. I got one of my nice 12 strings broken on the Concorde of all things. Oh. They said they would treat our luggage with kid gloves. I said, yeah, the kid gloves, they put it on the forklift that they ran through the guitar case. They broke my 12-string. Oh. So I went to Martin. I said, could you make me a 6-string guitar that had the sound of a 12-string? And my idea is to put this extra string in the middle. And they made me one in the custom shop. And it was sitting around in Dick Boak's office. He's the customer service guy, the artist relations guy at Martin. And a couple of other guitar players came in and tried it out and said, hey, I love this. I want to get one too. So he made a whole run of them, and it's got my name on it. It's like I think they made a couple of hundred of them altogether.
It has a beautiful sound. And of course, you made the 12-string famous with the Byrds. That was a unique sound. I just read Keith Richards' biography, Life. And have you read it?
I have not. I heard that he snorted his father. That's all I know about.
Among other things. I think he snorted everything. But one of the things he talks about is the search for a sound that, he talks about satisfaction and how he was looking for it. And he said that's...
That came to him in a dream, I think, huh?
Yeah, and then he had, I think he had an old reel-to-reel recorder, and he recorded over and over and over again to get the fuzz tone. And he said it was really, yes, it did. He said it came to him in a dream, that famous riff.
Right.
How important is that to you? It doesn't seem like the Byrds or any of your music is about a guitar riff or a hook.
Well, the intro to Mr. Tambourine Man was based on...
That's Bach.
Yeah, we were playing around with a little Bach.
Yeah.
I learned that from Pete Seeger's Goofin' Off suite back in the 50s. And I learned it on the banjo, and then I transferred it over to the guitar. And you can hear the similarity in the opening line of Mr. Tambourine Man. It's got a little bit of that sound to it.
I never knew that.
It's a Bach-inspired lick. So we were thinking hooks.
You were.
And the Beatles were the first ones to use the electric Rickenbacker 12-string because Rickenbacker gave them one back in '64. And George Harrison really took to it and used it in the movie A Hard Day's Night. And the Byrds all went to see the movie A Hard Day's Night and came back. We took notes on what the Beatles were playing. Okay, Ringo's got Ludwig drums and George has a Gretsch guitar. Oh, he's got a Rickenbacker guitar. What's that? And then, oh, wow, it's an electric 12-string. I got to get one of those. So I traded in my acoustic 12-string and my 5-string banjo and got this Rickenbacker, which you can see up there on the wall.
That's beautiful. That's the original?
No, that's a signature model that came out in the 80s, but it's the same model.
That's so neat.
370-12. Mine was a 360 when I got it.
Well, Web4457 in our chat room is chastising me, saying, "What are you talking about? The Byrds had some of the most memorable hooks in all of music." Andy Ihnatko. All right, I'll give you a tidbit nobody knows about Andy Ihnatko. He invented the Macquarium. Is that true?
I don't think I invented it. There was because I certainly didn't, because I think the first Macworld Expo I went to in 1985.
You saw one.
And I saw you have a classic Mac. It looks a little bit like a boxy aquarium. People will naturally try to do it. As a matter of fact, I think that after I started writing about this sort of stuff, someone sent me a tech note that was, I don't know necessarily if it made it outside of Apple, but someone inside Apple had figured out a way to do it. But it was such a complicated sort of glass structure you had to build in order to fit inside this that I wasn't really tempted to try it. So I was doing the Q&A column for a Mac user, and this is when the Mac Plus and the Mac SE were like the current Macs, and someone asked, how can I make my Mac 512K useful? And of course, Mr. Creativity, Mr. Clever Pants, Mr. Sarcastic said, well, you can turn it into an aquarium. That would make it useful. And then I went on and actually answered the guy's question. But that led to like all kinds of people writing and say, well, how do you turn a Mac into an aquarium? And so it was fun because I spent like a month and a half trying to figure out how best to do this. Not only how to make it work, but also how to reduce it to a simple set of plans that anybody could follow, as opposed to this other set of plans that I'd encountered later on, which is just all these weird angles, and you need to be a really good glass cutter. But nope, just go take this sheet of paper to any place that cuts window glass, have them give you these sheets of glass, put it up with silicone, make this wooden platform, boom, it works. So if I have a version of the resume that I'm not sure that I can really back up, a line on that resume is that I published one of the first ebooks, because there was no such thing as a World Wide Web. There was 92, maybe 93, and Mac user was not going to be able to like publish this like 6,000 word book with illustrations inside the magazine. So I just said, look, I'm posting this into the forum on CompuServe. It's a Word file with pictures inside it. Download if you want to hear all the plans, and I also put in the front of it, I'm giving this away for free, but it's not public domain. Make sure if you just put it wherever you want, just keep my authorship there. And if you don't build these and sell them for profit, because figure that out on your own. And just if you want to thank me in any way, donate blood to the Red Cross, and we'll consider that even. So it's very, very pleasant. As a matter of fact, in one of the storage lockers, I do have still about a dozen, like maybe even a dozen and a half old Macs. Because there was a time when,
I was wondering.
Yeah, because there was a time when people would like ask me to like donate one for like a raffle or something,
right, make one,
or I would give one away as a gift, or I would give away the one that I had in my office and I had to make another one. And back when Massachusetts started charging money to dispose of computers, I found that the price of the MIT flea market on an old Mac went from like $50 to $10 to $5 to I have a pile of these here in the booth. Just take as many as you want because I don't want to have to pay to have these disposed.
I take you back to 1993. Dr. Mac, Bob Levitas, and a very young
it teaches you how
Andy
to take an obsolete
Ihnatko.
Macintosh and turn it into an aquarium. You got to see this. So Andy, tell us a little bit about
boy, the quality's terrible on
drove
this.
you to create the Macquarium.
Well, it all started out in a quest for me to decrease my word count by making a joke about upgrading a 512K Macintosh
No
into
mutton
aquarium.
chops.
That being the only
But
really
you do have
useful
the
thing
hat,
you can do to
the
it.
fedora.
Of course,
God, I still
a
miss that
torrent
shirt.
of
I
mail
love that
followed saying, well, how actually do you do it? Which led to an 8-month odyssey of trial, error, and successes and failures. Well, we don't want to upset certain sensitive
You had a little
viewers,
more of a
so we'll
Boston
say
accent
failures.
back then, Andrew.
But, you know, the ones that are in there right now, thankfully,
That
are
was before I
benefiting
spent
from
more
the
time
failures
overseas.
That is on YouTube if you want to see more of it, as is, I see, Bob Llewellyn's interview with you on his Carpool show.
Yep.
One last question. Coolest thing you ever found at the MIT flea market?
That would be a that would actually be a either an original Altair 8080
Ooh.
or the door from an Apollo trainer. and the door was not for sale. It was this guy had actually managed to acquire from a defunct museum like a training version of the or a test bed version of an Apollo crew capsule, and he was trying to. Of course, it had been sort of gutted out, and he was trying to like find people who had parts so we could restore it to like its original, I don't know, flyable condition. And it's just like, can I pretend to be an Asteroid Jim Lovell staring out through that window? Can you take my picture staring out through that window, sir? All I have is $130, but I can go to the ATM and get more.
That's the best reason to live in Boston, the MIT flea market. And Andy Ihnatko. Andy, great to talk to you. Thank you for joining us today on Triangulation.
Always cool to chat with you, Lou.
Yeah, always fun. Nice to spend some time just talking. Just talking.
Yes.
And is that Indiana Jones behind you there? We always have to ask. Andy always has amazing backdrops.
That is a Jim Steranko concept art painting of Indiana Jones that they Spielberg and Lucas actually commissioned him to come up with. So here's the basic story. Could you paint some scenes of, because he was famous for those kind of like action pulp scenes. And it's actually said that the actual costume design of Indiana Jones came from one of these Steranko paintings. Wow. I didn't know it was going to be a fedora and a bag and a leather jacket, but it's like, okay, that works. We'll use that. Thank you, Mr.
What
Steranko.
is the story? Okay, I said one last question, but one more. What is the story of the fedora? Because I didn't realize you wore one as long as 20 years ago.
Longer than that. I mean, I don't want that. I don't want that to ever become an affectation because there's nothing more pathetic than, you know, when you see somebody who like what's sadder than Hulk Hogan that still has to wear the sweatband and
right.
like the ripped muscle T-shirt, as opposed to, well, you're in your, what is he in his 60s now? It's okay if you wear a polo shirt now. You know, it's okay. But yeah, I mean, I'm very, very grateful to one of my oldest friends has a picture of me like at 17 or 18 with a hat, much like my regular fedora. I wear it because I enjoy it. I wear it in public. I will take it off when it's socially inappropriate to be wearing a hat. And there are days when I don't actually wear it, so it's not something that I have to wear all the time.
It's a great hat and a great choice.
It is a great one. I usually have a box of like 4 or 5 of them, so that if they ever stop making it, I have at least a 2-year lead time to find another hat that I like.
Oh, so this is a specific brand of fedora?
I found it's just that you find one that you like, and it's inexpensive. It's easily orderable over the internet. So why would I go hunting for a million kinds of that, different kinds of that? It's like I will simply buy a box of 3 or 4 of them, and it's kind of like when Charles Schulz, the cartoonist. One of my favorite stories about him is that there was type of steel crow quill that he really liked to draw with. He thought was the perfect crow quill. When he found out that the company was going to stop making them, he simply called them and say, "How many do you have in your warehouse?" And he said, "Great, I will take them all." And so he used to like every time he get a new editor or something or anything at the syndicate, he would like, and they came to visit him. He'd say, "Yeah, well, I'm glad you came to see me. I mean, I kind of decided that I'm probably going to stop doing the strip as soon as I run out of my favorite crow quill pen." And they're, "Oh my God, Sparky's going to be 4 months, a year." Then he'd laugh and show him the storage closet with tens of thousands of boxes of nibs. When you find something you like and you have the ability to not have to make that decision again, why make that decision?
Why exactly? Buy more. Adam Carolla. Adam is the holder of the Guinness Book of World Records for the most downloaded podcast, taking that title from Ricky Gervais over a 2-year period. Something like 59 million downloads. He has become, in many, I think in many minds, the podcaster. Adam Carolla, good to see you.
Thanks, Leo. That's high praise coming from who I think is in many people's minds the podcaster.
Well, it's not a title anybody's fighting over.
That's true.
It's not like, "Oh, I'm the #1.
Yeah, I think we'd rather be Stanley Cup champion, Leo Ford, or Adam Carolla, or a
few other titles,
or the land speed record, or something good like that, or maybe an Oscar or an Emmy.
Anything, frankly, would be better than this. So, actually, you're originally a radio guy, broadcaster. You also did the Man Show. You've done a lot of TV. What was it that inspired you to create the podcast? This was what, 2009?
Yeah, I was let go from my radio show. The whole year up until the point where I was let go from my radio show, I kept getting these reports where we had millions of minutes of streaming. They would say, "Well, last month you had 19 million minutes of streaming." And I wasn't exactly sure what that meant, but I knew it was people listening to the show via the internet. And, I went from maybe 100 or 120 markets when I was doing Loveline to 13 or 15 markets when I was doing my morning show. So it made sense to me that people in Boston, for instance, where I had been a fixture on the radio for 10 years, or maybe San Diego, where I'd been on the radio for over 10 years, and now I wasn't on the radio, may have been streaming my morning show. So in a way, but you tell me, you're the expert, we were sort of podcasting before we were calling it podcasting. We were doing a radio show, or we were doing a show that was being consumed via the internet.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I don't even know what podcasting means anymore. I never liked the word very much because it kind of implied something you put on an iPod. And,
right.
And it's internet. We're broadcasters, right? It's on the internet instead of a tower. So, it's still a show.
Yeah, so I've done my friend Bill Simmons' podcast a couple of times, and my friend said to me, "Why don't you just keep it going? Why don't you start doing it,
right,
off the air, just because you get fired from your job?" And we just started up the following Sunday. Like, it didn't take a week off. Well, it seemed for a guy, and you understand the schedule, for a guy who was getting up at 4:45 in the morning and driving into the Mid-Wilshire district and doing 4 hours of radio, and then, meetings with, affiliate directors and program directors and advertisers and potential advertisers and all that kind of stuff. Well, the idea of sitting where I'm sitting right now, hitting play on a laptop or hitting record on a laptop and doing an hour worth of talking into a microphone with Jimmy Kimmel or Seth MacFarlane or whoever I invited over for a cocktail that night, with no commercial breaks and no live reads and no program directors, it seemed like very light lifting to me, and not getting up at 5 in the morning to do it.
And Did you feel like I want to stay on the air in some way? I mean, it was one of those things. I still want to keep doing what I'm doing.
I had this feeling of I've built an audience over the last 15 years of doing radio, and I don't think over the past 15 years I had been off the air for any more than 8 days or something. And I thought, well, I don't want to lose that small army of people that I've built. Number one. Number two, it's enjoyable for me. I like doing this. I like doing what we're doing now, even though you couldn't tell by looking at my face. Talking is something you do. It's enjoyable.
Right.
If you and I went out to lunch, we would go out to lunch to enjoy ourselves.
It'd be just like this.
And it would be just like this, except for I would have a nice buzz.
You don't have a buzz?
I have a mild buzz.
Okay.
But I would have a greater one if you and I, especially if you were buying, Leo. So I didn't want to turn it into work. I didn't want to lose my audience. And I also have this feeling that there's a much deeper connection when you're dealing with an audible audience versus a visual audience. And, people say, oh, I relied on you to get me through my crappy job and a horrible job and a horrible boss.
Right.
And I used to listen to you every morning and it got me through it. And it got me through my horrible commute. Or, I've even had people say, I was going through a horrible divorce and your humor brought me a lot of solace, or whatever situation in their life. Sometimes it's really heavy. Like my sister got cancer and it was really tough. And the laughs that you brought me really made me feel good for that moment, or whatever it was. I thought for those few people that really give a crap, I want to be there for them. I want to say, I'm not pulling the plug on this if you need it. And, 85% of you will just move right on to Ryan Seacrest or
God.
whoever's spinning the next Jonas Brothers effort. But for the small group of you that really do need me, here's how you can find me.
Space scientist Chris Lewicki is on with us. He is chief engineer and president of a company called Planetary Resources, a company founded by Peter Diamandis, the idea being to mine asteroids. And I want to talk a little bit about that. But they got a lot of attention very recently because of this Kickstarter project, ARKID, a space telescope for everybody. And they are 11 days to go to raise $1 million. They are within $33,000 of their goal. And I'm hoping we can put them over the top during this hour. Let's say hello to Chris Lewicki. Hi, Chris. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here. Really excited to share what we're doing with everyone and just have a lot of fun discussing the exciting projects we've got going on.
Is that ARKID behind you?
It is. I've got a mechanical prototype of the spacecraft right here. I'll bring it a little closer.
It's pretty small.
It is?
But it's got, I see solar panels on it. It's not as big as Hubble, obviously.
It's not. It packs a lot of power in it that Hubble does not have, but it's also about, let me think, 10,000 times cheaper than Hubble or so. So we're getting to a point in time when small teams of engineers like ours at Planetary Resources can really do these projects and involve the public and do them more frequently than once every decade or so, or even not at all. So
that's
being able to do what we're doing in exploring space privately and robotically, and to have the opportunity to get that direct engagement of everyone out there is something that's been very exciting for us, and we're confident. Of course, we're going to pass through our goal. We're going on the way to $2 million, so we can do fun things like observe and confirm extra solar system planets and other fun stuff.
Now, when I first saw it, I thought, well, $1 million? You can't do this for $1 million. Is that's not the total cost?
No, that's not the total cost. We are already building and designing and deploying these telescopes into orbit, whether there was the Kickstarter or not. This actually came out of an idea as we announced the company about a year ago. So many people had expressed interest in either volunteering or sharing their ideas or getting engaged Thousands of people wanted to invest. We had thousands of job applications. And we kind of took all that input and just considered what we might be able to do. And Kickstarter and things like it were kind of coming of vogue over the past year or so. And we thought it was an excellent way to put out a couple different ideas of how to leverage what the company is already doing. We could create some public engagement, create some opportunities for people to be able to participate in our mission, but we could kind of make sure that by doing that, people would actually be interested and it would be something that would be valuable to them. So we've got 10,900 people who feel that that's the case, and nearly $1 million. So this money really offsets the costs of us creating this experience for everyone in the public, allowing them to control our telescope in space and take an observation, creating the educational programs that we'll use to go into classrooms around the world, and doing those fun things like the space selfie or your face in space to just for $25 to be able to kind of put your face out there in the cosmos and have the picture to prove it.
It's a great way to capture people's imagination. Can you show us how that works?
So we have, one of the things I spent about 10 years at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory with NASA. And it was kind of funny because we sent, of course, many spacecraft out into the solar system and the ones on the surface of Mars. And the things that people are most excited about after you see those glorious pictures of a new place in the solar system is seeing that machine that human beings built.
It is.
So one of the first ideas we had, one of the first ideas we had was after we get our telescope up into space and get it all deployed out, and I'll get a little bit farther back here, was to essentially put up this little camera so that you would be able to get that view down the bore sight of us taking pictures of the universe with this little camera, so you can kind of see our machine out in space. And then we had another idea in terms of if we would make this available for everyone, that this whole area right here is something that you're going to see all the time. And we thought, well, you could put logos and plaques and all kinds of interesting engraving on there. But what if we actually put something dynamic, something that people could put messages? And what hit us when we started this campaign, there you've got the rendering of it, was that people could put pictures. And we actually could take a picture, we could put it into the spacecraft's memory, and then when we get up in space, snap a photo of that. And then you have that picture really like when you travel somewhere, like going to Paris and the Eiffel Tower. You can, of course, buy a picture of the Eiffel Tower. You can go to Google and find pictures of the Eiffel Tower. But yet, we all take the picture ourselves because we remember the day that we were there and what it was like and the experience of doing that. So that's the same thing we're doing with our space selfies, is giving the people the opportunity to interact with outer space and to really have that piece of the experience for themselves.
Dr. Kiki. So when did you go from being a practicing working scientist to somebody who talks about science?
That was around grad school. I went from, the first 2 years, in the first 2 years of grad school, taking all my classes, doing a little bit of research, I got to the point of taking of having to do my defense so that I could go on. And
this is your PhD defense, where
my PhD
you sit
defense
in front of some very mean professors, and you say,
they ask you a lot of questions, and you have to answer them.
That's the oral part of the PhD.
My oral exams, Oof. So it was a great learning experience. It was definitely nerve-wracking getting up to it, but it was
be intimidating. Yeah,
it is intimidating. But if you know what you're talking about, and if you've learned your subject area, it's interesting because you can actually end up having a conversation with these people who are now your peers.
Wow.
They used to teach you, and now you can be teaching them.
Exciting.
You can have a conversation, and it is very exciting, and it's kind of neat to have that moment of kind of realizing, wow, I do have ideas and I do have knowledge, and I can share it, and I can work with these people, and I can collaborate. And so that was a really, really great part of the experience. But then my PI, who I worked for, she moved to Cambridge, and she couldn't take the lab with her. So I had no place to do my research, and I didn't really know anybody at UC Davis who I could finish my research with.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I was kind of in this limbo. I'd finished 2 years. I probably could have written a very short paper and gotten a master's at that point and gotten out. But what I did is I took a leave of absence. And so I moved to San Francisco to be with my boyfriend. And I got a job for a while in the UC San Francisco School of Pharmacy. And then I got another job in UC San Francisco's neuropsychopharmacology lab, and I gave illicit drugs to people for a while.
So that's not made up in your bio.
No,
that part's true.
It's very true.
What kind of drugs?
Ecstasy, cocaine.
This was done in research.
Amphetamines.
This wasn't an illegal practice. This was part of the research that you were doing there.
This is the research program.
Wow.
Part of the work was funded by the National Institute of Drug Abuse, NIDA, and a lot of the research was looking at different ideas of cessation. So how to get people off of drugs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. One of them, we were looking at a chemical called buprenorphine to be used for heroin addicts to get off heroin.
So that's an interesting area.
It was really interesting.
Yeah.
That was great fun.
Yeah.
It's doing human research though is it's an interesting place.
There are ethical issues that come up, I'm sure.
Many ethical issues, especially if you want to test, want to find out what a particular drug is like on somebody who's never taken it before. Can you do that? And what is the ethical, what if they go on to take that drug more?
Right.
They have to tell you that they're interested in it, and they have to tell you that they'd probably do it or try it at some point, even if you weren't giving it to them. But at the same time, if you give somebody a drug in a laboratory situation, are you in some way involved in their addiction if they become addicted? So there's some really, really fascinating ethical questions when it comes to human drug research, especially in relation to illicit drugs.
And you probably can't do those on rats.
Well, you can. But at a certain point, there's only so much you can learn from a rat.
Right.
We've cured cancer in mice 1 million times over.
Yeah, hasn't helped us yet.
It hasn't helped us, right?
Yeah.
Massimo Bonzi, Arduino.
Can you describe for those who don't know what the Arduino is? What your goals were in designing one?
So the Arduino, it's essentially a small computer the size of a credit card. It's not a very powerful computer. It's the same kind of computer that you would find in a microwave oven or kind of, these sort of very simple appliances. But it's actually, the fact that it's simple and cheap and can be embedded into almost anything. It can be used to build a lot of different interactive objects. You can use it to build art installations. You can use it to build all sorts of things. So it's really the motherboard for making lots of cool projects. And what we did, this kind of programming has been around forever. It's called embedded programming. What we try to do there is to make it simple for people that don't have a background in electronics and software to be able to approach this type of programming and build these cool objects without, having to have a degree in electronics engineering.
When I was at Google I/O the other day, they had little Arduinos all over the place. It said something like, we're keeping an eye on you, and it was measuring temperature and noise. I don't know what it was measuring, all sorts of things. But it was great because they were the open circuits. And it's Google's developer conference, and everyone there, of course, knows what Arduino is. Probably half of them have done Arduino projects. It's something that, when did you start this project?
So, Arduino comes out of this work that I was doing when I was teaching in a design school in Italy. And the objective of my course was really to take designers who don't have a background in software or electronics and teach them how to use these small embedded computers to prototype, the objects of the future. So, when you're an interaction designer, so like the most modern kind of a designer, you don't design chairs or tables, you design objects that interact with people. And you need to design the kind of interaction, and you need some way to prototype this idea. So I started teaching in this school in the northwest of Italy in 2002. And Arduino sort of started happening in 2004, and it got the Arduino name in March 2005.
What does Arduino mean?
Oh, Arduino is a person name. What happens is that when I was working on Arduino, I was in the city in the northwest of Italy called Ivrea, where there was this King Arduino that was kind of the self-proclaimed first king of Italy. But he was completely self-proclaimed, and it was the year 1000. So, you could claim you're the king of Italy because, the news wouldn't travel. Now it's kind of harder to do that. And everything there was called Arduino, so Arduino Square. So we were in this bar having drinks called the Arduino Bar. And I thought, well, let's call this thing Arduino. We can always change the name later, and it stuck. It works.
I declare it the king of making.
Yes, it is the king of making now.
Massimo, this is an open source piece of hardware. A lot of people can make these themselves, right?
Yeah, so I think the novelty of our project was also the fact that we decided immediately to release all the designs for all the electronic parts. So you can actually download a CAD file from our website and send it to a factory, and they will manufacture the printed circuit board for you, and you can assemble a board or you can run a production. The only thing that's the only thing we control in the project is the trademark. So if you want to call yourself Arduino, you have to talk to us. But if you want to use our technology, the software, the hardware, the documentation, you're free to do that.
Me. So you have the good hair, and I think I have a good voice, and I think that's really the only secret to my success. Right there, that's it.
Well, it is the voice. The radio voice is actually
something
that, that you either have it or you don't.
It's soothing.
It is.
And it helps people sleep. And
but did you always have that voice, or was it something you cultivate?
No, I didn't. Although every once in a while I hear my voice and I hear tones of my father's voice in it. So I think I do probably sound like my dad a little bit, but more resonant. So I did. I mean, you work in radio, you work on the resonance. You worked in radio, you work on the resonance of your voice, and you're always listening to your voice. So I think it got more resonant because I worked it more.
And when did you start thinking about
I started doing voices and stuff like that when I was about 3, literally.
Like doing imitations?
And talking into a coffee can so I could hear what I sounded like. I had when I was probably about 11, we got a very early cassette recorder, and I started doing commercials and stuff into the cassette recorder. So I'm really doing what I always thought I would do.
Realistic, like tan ones?
It was such a funky thing because it had wood. It had a wood. It was probably designed for a home stereo system, a component, and big chunky buttons. And we had it hooked up to the stereo. And I remember once I was doing this recording and stuff, played it into my parents' bedroom. They had stereo speakers in there. And I wish they'd said something right away, but it was like an hour later, they came out and said, well, that was funny. I said, you heard all of that?
Oh, no.
It was so embarrassing, but I was making up commercials and
no, so I think
I still make up commercials. By the way, have you seen our no, I'll save that for later.
Do you have any of those tapes? Have you digitized any of that stuff?
No, I don't have. In fact, one of the things that makes me sad, Dvorak has some tapes of our early radio show, but I don't have early tapes at all. You make a lot of air checks, but they're on reel-to-reel and cassette, and they were in boxes. Forget kid. When I was on the radio, I don't have stuff from. I don't even have any more tech TV stuff. Except
so was it always
YouTube.
Talk radio stuff? Were you imitating?
No, because in radio. I wanted to be an actor.
Okay.
But when I started in radio, I had to be a DJ playing music. You did that too, right?
Yeah.
KMOX, St. Louis, and so that was you, not me.
No, I wasn't at KMOX.
What were you on?
WGEL.
If I'd known that, I don't know if we would have hired you in the first place. I thought it was KMOX. No, you start in college radio playing music, and you're stupid in college. You think, oh, this is fun. I'll get to play the music I really like and talk. And then you get in the real world, and they give you a piece of paper, say, this is what you're going to play today. And it's the same 20 songs over and over and over again. And so it really wasn't very satisfying.
Wait, so you're telling me that when they say if you're the 20th caller, we'll play your song,
no,
it's just
that's
a big...
lie. We take requests and all that stuff. You know, so what you're doing during commercials.
You take a request that's already on the piece of paper.
Right, it has to be on that piece of paper. It's not the good news is most people are asking for the same 20 songs over and over again. Yeah. So you're recording it reel-to-reel in the background, and you take all the calls, and then you pick the one you're going to play. And then you play it. We come out of the commercial, you press play, and it's, hey, it's KLX, what do you want to hear? I'd like to hear my favorite, Kenny Rogers the Gambler. Hey, there it is. And meanwhile, you started it exactly so you know that the speaking will end right when the song, hey, you got to know when to hold 'em. So it's all a perfect medley of wonderfulness.
So you got into it in college? Was that?
College, yeah. So
where did you go to college?
I went to Yale, and when I was, I think my sophomore year, I always did a lot of voices. And even when I first started in college, I was still doing a lot of voices, silly voices, comedic stuff. I listened to Firesign Theater. I was doing a lot of that. Was the big inspiration.
Theater, yeah.
And so I was doing a lot of those voices. And then I was working in the dining hall serving food.
I worked in the dining hall too.
Yeah, Berkeley College dining hall serving food. And you know, they're coming in the line and you go, and but I would always say, hey, here's some fine mashed potatoes for you. Would you like a pat of butter? And
really?
Doing voices, yeah, I would be doing voices.
Do people like it or
no?
No.
But I thought they liked it. But I realized in hindsight they didn't like it because what they would say is, oh, that's great. You ought to be in radio. And I always heard it, hey, that's great. You ought to be in radio. And what they were saying is, oh, that's great. You ought to be in radio. Like, not get out of here and do it on somewhere else because
you've got a face for it.
We want to eat.
I think it was probably, this is, you know, you're wasting a great voice feeding us slop.
Please stop feeding us and go work in radio.
Go work in radio.
Shut up and give me the potatoes is what they were saying. But I heard it like you did. I heard it as encouragement. So there was a campus radio station, WYBC, and I went over there, and I was very scared. And they made you audition. So the way you audition, this is in the days of teletype news. So, you know, they had the teletypes, AP, UPI. There'd be 3 or 4 teletypes in a row. You'd go and you'd look for stories. You had a ruler, and you'd rip off the news. It's called rip and read. And then you'd have a sheaf.
UPI or AP machine?
UPI, AP, Reuters, and you'd have a sheaf of papers. And I can really remember that I was scared because the sheaf was shaking like leaves. And the microphone was an old RCA ribbon mic hanging from the ceiling.
Wow, yeah.
And they went, and in the news, and I was really scared. And that was live. It was an audition. Now nobody's listening.
How old were you at this point?
16 or 17. It was a college radio station, so it wasn't
you were 16 at college?
I went to college at 16. Okay. So, but this was sophomore year, so I was 17. So I was very nervous, but they were very desperate. So they said, okay, you can keep doing that. And it's very much like, remember that great movie, Pitch Perfect? Where she goes to the college radio
Available
station.
on HBO Go right now.
It is. It's actually a good movie. But she goes to
You also like Glee.
I love Glee. It's another Glee.
My nephew, my 20-year-old male football-playing nephew, chose to watch Pitch Perfect.
It's actually quite
prompting.
funny. But the star of it, she goes to the college radio station, and it was actually a very realistic portrayal. There's a guy in the booth who's a hunk. That was me. And then there's a lot of albums, and he said you can sort the albums, or actually there was CDs, but in my day it was albums, and that's the kind of thing you did. And then you slowly worked your way into radio. But it was music, and I loved playing the music. I wasn't, you know, thinking about it, I wasn't very good as a DJ. You know, this was 1974. There was a lot of good progressive rock, but I'd be playing like the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and you know, Blue Oyster Cult,
Yeah.
No, it was terrible. I thought I was with it and hip, but as you know, Sarah, my musical tastes are not too sophisticated. Stuart Chaffee. Here we go. This was the classic roundtable format where you'd have these guys in. This is VP Marketing for Telos Software.
Well, this is way back. Yeah, this is still season
Joanna
1.
was early marketing manager at Apple.
This is still season 1 or 2, I can tell from the set.
We have processors like the Motorola 68000, Intel 286, a half a mega memory is sort of standard. We have high resolution graphics like the Macintosh. And it leads us to a whole new level of software where graphics is a very, very important part of the application. Joanna, what kind of
So we all had ties and jackets when we started this, before we got into the, you know, the more geek look.
Got relaxed.
We changed the set a couple times, made it look more like a computer lab.
I liked it was always, of course this is fake, but it was looked like you were looking out over the Golden Gate Bridge in the San Francisco.
That's true. We were in a TV studio.
You were in a TV, but I like it. It felt like, you know, here we are somewhere in the, it certainly, you know what it did? It placed it in Silicon Valley, and I think that was pretty important, actually.
Well, that's right. That was one of our selling points. We were right in the valley.
You're there.
Access to all these people.
Yeah. I have to find, and I will find the John C. Dvorak
oh, that's a classic
clip. I don't know if I can find it on.
Look for IBM PS2. I think that was the machine.
He was showing off the PS2, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, he said, this is a great thing about this machine is it's modular. You can take it apart and put it back together. I said, John, do it. So he took it apart, but he couldn't get it back together. It was like when you're fixing your car. You know?
Yeah, and he had the biggest aviator glasses, I remember as well.
We had another great one.
Here he is. Here's John C. Dvorak. Boy, he does not look like the same guy.
I think when we start talking about machines 2 or 3 years from now, when we want to go to real fast CPU speeds in 386s, it might be nice to use this bus because it's a real...
This is not the one he took it apart.
That's the one in which he takes it apart. Yeah,
well, the software runs on both the clones in this machine, and IBM is going to bring out some proprietary software that probably won't be too exciting if they go...
Well, were there surprises as you're going along? I mean, you're seeing the world change over 25.
He reminds me of a show we did with Peter Norton. So when Norton came out with the disk, whatever, the recover your hard drive
His first thing was an unerase program.
Yeah, it was unerase, right. Yeah. Anyhow, so we had this computer, it was all screwed up, and Peter Norton comes in, I'm going to fix it for you.
Oh, that's brave. It's live still.
This is well, live on tape.
Live on tape, yeah.
And so he, puts his software in there, and he's plugging away, and the sweat is pouring because he's totally screwed up this computer. He cannot get into it. He cannot get out of it. We're spending a fortune of money minute by minute in the TV studio, and he cannot get this thing to work again.
Lord.
So that was
Did he have the wide tie even then?
Yeah, that was a John Dvorak moment. I'll tell you another funny moment. We introduced the very first color laser printer from Xerox on the show.
Wow.
So I don't know when that was, in the 80s sometime.
Yeah.
Well, I was looking forward to this printer. The thing was the size of a Volkswagen. It came in on 2 crates, 4 engineers to hook it up, plug it in, test it, get ready to go. And we said, well, we better do a test before we actually do it on the show. And so they turn it on, they press print, steam and fire and flames start coming out of the printer. It was the funniest thing. They eventually got it to work, and the output was incredible.
That was the color, the steam. Is this Peter Norton we're looking at here?
No.
No. All right. He's on this show. I have to find him.
This is the problem, and this is what the Norton Advanced Utilities.
There's a guy from Peter
From Norton. I want to
earlier.
see the guy with the wide tie. I want to see Peter Norton.
Peter was a couple years after this.
Yeah. Wow. Grammar girl. Grammar is one of those funny things. There's certain areas where everybody thinks they're an expert, and grammar is one of them. And I've never seen more bitter, vicious fights over grammar principles. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, it surprised me at first. I didn't really know what I was getting into, actually. And that was sort of what prompted me to start doing tons and tons of research for every one of my shows, because people disagree so much. And I wanted to be sure I was giving the best information and not just my opinion.
What's the most controversial grammar rule?
Oh, a lot of people think you shouldn't end a sentence with a preposition. But there is no real rule against it. It was made up by writers in the 18th century, and it's
terrible
made it into
rule because it ends up with all these complicated constructions that you're doing cartwheels to try not to put a preposition of the sentence at which it will be ending to which of that.
Exactly. That is something up with which I will not put.
Up with which I will not put. It's okay to say put up with.
It is. It's not a real rule. The problem is a lot of people think it's a real rule. So although I tell people it's not a real rule, then I have to say, but so many people think it is, you really should try to avoid it when you can. But don't make your sentences painfully awkward if that's what it takes. Just end it with a sentence, with a preposition.
Yeah, because up with which I will not put. There's a famous joke about that, isn't there?
There is, with somewhat colorful language.
It's a colorful joke about it's a girl meeting her college roommate for the first time. Is that it?
There are a ton of variations. So there's something, one I commonly hear is at a restaurant. So the waitress will say, "Where are you from?" And the person will say, "We're from somewhere. We don't end sentences with prepositions." And she says, "Oh, where are you from, jerk?"
Only a little more colorfully.
Yeah.
It's actually a great joke.
It is.
Okay, so we can now stop doing convoluted sentences to get rid of our preps at the end. That's good. Of course, if you don't know what a preposition is, this is completely a meaningless conversation. And that's where, and I want to give you a plug right up front, Grammar Girl's new app will be very handy. I'm not very good at it. I thought I was. I thought I was super smart. If you've been listening to the Grammar Girl podcast for the last 7 years, you probably do better than I did. Grammar Pop is the name of it. Just came out last week on the iOS store. You don't have an Android version yet, right?
Not yet. I'm working on it.
I'm going to go back to a easier. I'm at the top level, and I'm not going to do that. So the idea is kind of like Angry Birds for grammar. I could see a 5th grader, 6th grader, 4th grader, something like that.
Yeah, definitely. 9 to 11-year-olds are. I hear a lot that parents are playing it with their kids, but the parents like the higher levels. They do, especially people who love word games.
It's challenging. We'll start with a early on level. So you pick a part of speech. In this case, I'll pick a noun, and madness is a noun. The is an article. So you're simply picking verb, noun, articles.
Don't stop.
Oh, by the way, that sounds just like Grammar Girl. Look, there she is. It's nice to have a caricature of yourself that is you. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it was great for the game.
Yeah, and it's your voice in the game, right?
Yeah. I recorded them just sort of as placeholders, but then everyone liked them.
What, they were going to hire professional voice talent? You're a professional now. Dog is a noun. Barked is a verb. Okay, so everybody, this would be good. Look at that. I got points. I get coins. I'm good. I'm a professor. Awesome.
Good job, Professor.
That's Grammar Girl saying that, not in real life on the game. It confused me because I have Grammar Girl on the show, and I thought she said to me, "Good job, Professor." I thought, are you being sarcastic, jerk? So let me go. Let me go to the hard one, just for you cocky people who think this is really easy. So you can play at any level without a timer, and there are 28 levels. Should we do an advanced level?
Yes.
This is the top level. So you'll see it's a little bit more complicated. There's, 12 different words here. Jonathan only gave Danielle the compliment so he could get her to stay. Well, I'll do the nouns because that's easy. Jonathan, Danielle, compliment. Okay, that's that. Now, let's see. Verbs, that's easy. Gave and... Oh, to stay is not a verb. It's an infinitive.
Right.
Okay, because it has two in it. Okay.
Yeah, infinitives are kind of easy in the game because they're always two words.
They always begin with two. Pronouns, that's pretty easy. He and her, right? We got an article in there, that's the. Now it gets hard. So these are the parts of the language it could be. Only. It's like only. An adverb, right?
Yes, yes.
Oh, good. Okay. So.
It's a conjunction.
Shh.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I knew that. It's a conjunction. Conjunction, junction.
It's like trying to watch someone else drive. No, go left. Go left.
Could. What is could? All right, I'm going to give you the chat room your chance. Don't say anything, Mignon. Chat room. What part of the English language is could? This is called Grammar Pop. I'm playing the HD version. You say a verb, let's try it. We're going to put it on. Richard Yah says a verb. It is a verb. Congratulations. How about get? That might be a verb too, right? Let's try it. It is. We did it. You must be a professor. Anyway, that is harder than it looks. Much harder. But if you play through the whole thing, it would be. So this is obviously an education game for students.
It is, although I consider it a word game. I mean, I made it as a word game because it was the kind of game I would want to play, and it didn't exist. But I am finding that the majority of the people, at least who are writing to me and saying they really love it, are either teachers or parents who are homeschooling their kids or want their kids to get extra practice.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to definitely use it with Lisa's son, Michael. He would get a lot out of this. And one thing I notice about kids that age is they are always on, if it's hard to get them to do homework because they have all these compelling screens they can go to, not just TV, but the computer, the iPad, and he loves it, and he'll spend a lot of time with it. So I think it's probably a good idea to start putting some, educational games in front of him because he'll do it, but he'll learn something at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I've been all about making grammar fun, starting with the podcast,
right,
and doing other things, and games were just a really obvious thing to do next.
Grant Imahara.
I enjoyed engineering, but it was tough. It was tough because in my third year, my junior year, I quit. And I was like, this is not good. I'm falling asleep in my classes. I don't have focus. This sucks. I remember I was taking electrophysics and physics 3 and calc 3, like all the least fun classes. I'm sorry if you're an electrophysics guy, I don't know. But for me, the least fun classes. And I was falling asleep. And so I was like, you know what? Forget this. If I'm gonna do this, I have to want to do it. If I'm gonna be successful at it. And so I had that conversation with my mom, and she was really supportive. I was scared to death, because most of the kids who I was in school with, their parents, if they didn't perform, their parents were like, you're done. So I was scared, but I'm glad I did. And she was like, you know what, you should be happy doing what you're doing. So I quit. And I said, I want to be a screenwriter. I want to go to the cinema school and do something creative, something super creative. So I went to the cinema school, and USC Cinema is well known, very tough school to get into. And so I went there and I was like, hey, I'm a student here, can I audit a class? And they're like, no. Can I sit in on a class? No. You know, and I was like, all right, fine. So I talked to one of the admissions directors, you know, just chatted with him, told him about my background. He goes, you know what? Based on your background, you should go down and talk to Tom Holman. And I'm like, who's Tom Holman? He said, Tom Holman is the TH of the THX sound system in Lucasfilm, and he's a professor here. He works in the sound department. He's an engineer. You know, he's doing what you want to be doing, which is combine something technical and something creative. And so I was like, okay. So
how old are you when this is happening? You're a junior in college.
Yeah.
Trying to switch totally from engineering to screenwriting. Yeah. And they're telling you to go talk to the TH and THX. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
This wasn't daunting at all? You're thinking about doing this? And
no. I went marched right down to Tom's office, and I said, you know, Mr. Holman? He goes, yes. And Tom is great. You know, he still teaches at USC. And at that time, he had a really tiny office and just total absent-minded professor. The office was floor-to-ceiling papers and you know, SMPTE journals and IATSE this, and you know, all the AES journals, all the different organizations that he was a member of and like kind of, you know, senior fellow and things like that, all stacked up. And so I went down to his office and I said, Mr. Holman? He goes, yes. He's got glasses, large guy, very boyish face. And I said, Mr. Holman, did you invent THX? He goes, yes, I did. I was like, that's cool. And behind him is like the technical award that you get from the Academy for the invention of THX. And so
papers everywhere and a big thing of gold sitting over there.
Yeah, it's like a plaque. And so I'm like, you know what? I think you could use a personal assistant. And he goes, you know, because I looked at his office, and yeah, I said, well, I'm interested in this field. Could I come and help you? You know, and he goes, well, do I have to pay you? And I said, no, I'll do it for free. And so for 6 months, I was Tom Holman's personal assistant, and he was awesome because with that, I had full access to all the classes that he taught, including Cinema 241, which is like the audio class for filmmakers, where you learn about how the basics of sound in films, and all his TA classes and the sound department, and he would give me things to read and take me to meetings. I mean, he was awesome.
Bob Birkin. I'm seeing a picture of you with June Foray. That must have been pretty cool.
Here's how I met June. I went to an ASIFA, which is an animation society. They did they were doing a cell show. They were selling animation cells, but they were doing a live reading of Rocky and Bull. Can I swear on this show?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Everybody, he's going to swear.
I'm going to swear. They were doing a live performance of Rocky and Bullwinkle with June Foray, Dawes Butler, Bill Scott, and Hans Conried.
She was Rocky.
She was Rocky and Natasha.
And Natasha, of course.
And when
Dawes was Bullwinkle.
And Dawes was, yes. And Dawes was, Bill Scott was Bullwinkle.
Bill Scott was Bullwinkle, that's
and
right.
Dawes was everything else.
Yeah.
So when I got
Boris
to...
Badenov and everybody else.
There you go.
Yeah.
That was Paul Frees.
Paul Frees was Boris Badenov?
There you go, yeah. Versatile, another check.
Just amazing.
I got to the audience early, and I had a little tape recorder with me because I went everywhere with the tape recorder, and I saw a tiny person on her hands and knees frantically looking for something, and I said, "Do you need help?"
She is tiny.
And she said, "Yes, I do. I lost my favorite little gold pin that my late husband gave me.
Oh no!
That said, oh
The pin said, oh
It said, oh and I said, "Can I help you look for your?" And she said, "Sure." And I got on my hands and knees and I said, "My name is Bob." And she said, "Nice to meet you, Bob. I'm June Foray."
You didn't know ahead of time?
No idea. And again, this was
I would have fallen over.
And this was right after my call to Mel Blanc.
You were 14?
I was 14, yeah. And I'm on my hands and knees thinking I'm ass to ass with Rocky the Flying Squirrel. How cool is this?
Did you ever find the pin?
And we did not find the pin, but she and I became really good friends. And
no kidding.
She was with me.
So you and Dawes and June Foray.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And June was at my first Porky Pig session. My first job, I was doing Tweety, she was doing Granny, I was doing Porky. And
she does a wonderful Let me play some voices of June Foray. This is all on YouTube. You can find all this stuff. Somebody's edited this all together, which is kind of handy. When you hear somebody like this is Granny.
This is brilliant.
You just really realize what an actor.
My eyes off you for a second. Let me warn you, Sylvester, for absolutely the last time, if there's one little feather, just one little feather harmed of this bird, I'm going to sell you to the violin string factory.
But I hear June Foray in that voice, big time. She had a certain cadence.
She did. But if you hear her real voice,
she doesn't talk like that?
No.
There was a certain...
you know what she did that was brilliant?
Here she is as Nell. Dudley.
Dudley, fancy meeting you
closer to
here.
her.
I always knew you were a big spender, and there's just so many things in town I want to buy.
But Nell, this money is for...
Me? Oh, do right.
A lot of cartoon voices have that thing.
It's a very common thing. We know why?
Why?
They're easy to mimic.
It's easy to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh. So if you're going to make up a character, don't do that.
You know what? Here's what you do.
You start right there because that's what you've learned to imitate.
Right.
And then you look at the specs.
Yes.
The character. And it says Southern. So he is a Southern kind of character. So
there you go.
And then you see.
There you go, my pal.
And then you see in the picture that he smokes because it's Adult Swim, so he can smoke.
Right.
And you just squeeze the back of your throat a little bit so he's got a little problem from the smoke.
Now you're Scatman Crothers.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you look at the picture, he's got buck teeth.
So you give him some buck teeth like this.
So you just keep layering the character.
You're building a person, a real person.
A living, breathing person.
It's comic, but it's still, it has to be a real person.
It has to be organic.
And they always say that in acting class. If you go for the comedy, there'll never be...
Try to be funny, you'll never be funny.
Yeah. You can't cry for the audience, you can't laugh for the audience, you can only be that character.
We did an episode of the Looney Tunes show where Daffy walked in on Porky taking a bath. Lots of nudity this season on the Looney Tunes show for some reason.
Shocking. Well, it's a nude duck.
And exactly. And Porky, Daffy hugs Porky and he's like, how do you feel? And Porky goes, uncomfortable.
That's great.
And as you're reading the script, it didn't have uncomfortable with a question mark, but as an actor, it's like uncomfortable.
Perfect.
Yeah, but those are the choices that you make as an actor.
You have to make a choice. Yeah.
Got to make a choice.
And you have to be that character. You can't be I'm a joke guy. You're Porky, and he's uncomfortable.
One of the times I had to audition for Porky, which I think was for Space Jam, which I did get.
That was a great movie. Michael Jordan.
Thank you. But for the audition, they had us do Shakespeare.
As Porky Pig?
Or Bugs Bunny or Daffy, whatever you were reading for.
What would that sound like?
Oh, to be the opposite.
You got the job. You're hired, kid.
But here's what they figured. They figured anybody can come in and say, that's all, folks. I taught putty
They know how to do that. But if you can do Shakespeare.
And make the story the star rather than the voice.
I think that's brilliant, actually.
I thought it was great.
It's a great idea for an audition. Jerry Ellsworth and Cast AR.
Were you working on this at Valve?
Yes, so this was a peripheral I was designing for the Steam box.
This is Cast AR.
Yes, this is projected augmented reality glasses. And the concept behind this was a peripheral for the Steam box to make it more interesting for casual game players. It was just to round out the entire offering. So that's what my idea was when I started developing this.
Now, the reason we're in the dark is because we're gonna put these things on. Now, this is obviously kind of a prototype. In fact, you've got a little Kickstarter going.
Oh yeah.
You've raised. In fact,
we hit our funding today.
Today you funded $400,000.
56 hours, I think.
Yeah, you still have 30 days to go.
Yeah.
So we'll go for the stretch goals.
Yes.
But so this is what it is. Now, people who contribute to the Kickstarter project, will they get a pair of Cast AR glasses? Am I saying it right? Is it Cast AR or Cast AR?
Cast AR.
Okay.
So the way it works is it projects two images. They look very dim when you like shine it on your hands.
Mm-hmm.
But then when it goes out to the special retroreflective surface out here.
That's a retroreflect. Whoa! Okay, it's suddenly gotten very 3D.
Yeah, so we have a high precision head tracker that tracks your head position.
Yeah.
It's triangulating itself. Haha. We're on triangulations. Off of this, if you cover that up with your hand, you're going to see that you're going to lose tracking.
Is it doing that with RF or is it visual?
This is infrared, and we modulate the LEDs so that the glasses, and it's all hardware accelerated tracking. It figures out what these points are and triangulates your position. And so this is the origin. If I move this.
Oh, you're moving me, right.
Yeah.
So right now I'm looking at what looks like, I'm looking top down like a game. In fact, whoa, I just blocked it and I lost track when you block the tracker.
We can actually have more trackers on the surface, so you have. Oh.
What?
Oh, I don't know.
Bunch of them? Anyway, when I'm looking, it looks like a factory floor kind of. There's barrels there. There's, I don't know how much of this they can see.
So if you lean down, you can look across the horizon. So it tracks your head position 360 degrees.
So I'm looking down the side there of that building. So is this virtual reality?
So this is augmented reality, but this is kind of a cross of virtual reality.
So when I turn my head, I'm looking in different places.
Yeah.
But it's projected on here.
Yeah, and anywhere this material is, I'm gonna
oh, yeah, you're right. Now, if you open that up, I see more there. What is this material?
So this is retroreflector. It's used for safety gear.
Now it's raining in there, by the way. It's raining there, but not here.
Because you moved your head outside of the.
Oh, now it's raining.
The building.
Oh, put my head back in the building and it'll stop raining. This is a very interesting. Now we've played with the Oculus Rift, which is a virtual reality headset. But this, I could see my hand. I could see Jason over there. I could see the world. But then projected onto this screen, I see something else. Oh, and that's me.
Yeah, that's
so is this for a top-down game particularly, or?
I can work with first-person, third-person, board games, tabletop gaming type experiences. And then we have some other peripherals, like we have a magic wand for it that you can reach out into this 3D space, which has the same accuracy as a head tracker. So you can actually reach in and touch the pixels with the wand and interact with the synthetic world out there.
So I presume stuff like this has been done before, yes or no?
No, this was actually an accident. I stumbled onto this when I was.
What do you mean an accident?
Yeah, well, there was. I was working on a near-to-eye display, kind of like the Oculus, where you're putting light directly into your eye.
Right.
And I made this rig, and I put it on the optical bench, and I put a beam splitter in backwards. Instead of projecting into my eye, it was projecting out into the room. And we had a piece of this material that was in the room, and it was used for a sensor array that we were working on. But I saw this beautiful image, and I'm like, that's interesting. That solves a lot of the problems with like near-to-eye displays, because you're looking at a distance that's like a true distance for your eyes to look at. So
it's more comfortable, frankly. I don't feel so claustrophobic.
Yeah, and your eyes are always focused at the right depth.
Right.
And
I'm not looking. Yes, that's right. Okay.
And your eyes converge at the right distance, so
it feels like I'm looking at something that's like right about here.
Yeah.
Like where the screen is.
Exactly. But it can also look like it extends way in there. If you kneel down and look way across the horizon, you can see way out into the distance.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. Wow. So it's hard to describe this experience to somebody who hasn't used this before.
That's actually been a big challenge for us because
people need to try it.
Yeah, if you try to record through the glasses, it just doesn't really.
Right.
It looks flat because it's a 2D, medium. But,
right.
But this is really, things are popping up. Like there's some. If I get close to you, I can see that there's some girders and stuff going across.
Yes,
those look like they're right about.
They get right in my way. Yeah, yeah. They're right there. Like that's right there. This is there. Yeah. Wow. Ladar Levison. Well, okay. I'd love the chronology. So, it was around August of this year that your name, Lavabit, was tied with Edward Snowden. When were you first approached by the U.S. government?
I was approached in May. They actually came by my home office and dropped off a business card.
FBI, CIA, who was it?
Yeah, FBI. Two FBI agents. Standard fare for this kind of thing, as I've since come to learn.
And did they, at that time, did they request information from you, or were they just saying hi?
You could characterize it as just saying hi. They came by to introduce themselves, and it was all on the presumption that they wanted to streamline the process of serving me documents and get my company enlisted in the InfraGuard program, which is the partnership between private industry and the federal government when it comes to law enforcement.
Had you been subpoenaed before for email records?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's happened about 24 times over the last 10 years from various levels of government, not just the federal, but various state governments as well.
Right. And did you always comply with those subpoenas?
Yeah. And technically, I complied with the subpoenas I got this summer. I just was so taken aback by their scope and what they were demanding that I felt I had to shut down as a result of that compliance.
What were they asking for?
Quite simply, they were asking for my SSL keys.
It's funny because that's
users at home. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what we had hypothesized. You know, so we first became aware of this. I'd signed up for Lavabit, and then I go to Lavabit, and it says, my fellow users, I've been forced to make a difficult decision to become complicit in crimes against the American people or walk away from nearly 10 years of hard work by shutting down Lavabit. And Steve Gibson and I thought a little bit, and Steve said, you're not going to refuse a subpoena for information, but you may want to shut down if what they ask you for is in effect an ongoing wiretap of traffic going in and out of Lavabit. And that's what they're asking for when they ask for the SSL keys, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you hit upon the key point. This was information that didn't belong to a specific user. It belonged to the business. And these keys were responsible for protecting the communications of all the users coming in and out of the network, including email content, passwords, credit card numbers. Even the administrative tools were protected by these SSL keys. So it was one of these things where if I had continued to operate the service once those keys had been compromised, I would have been leaving the door wide open for the FBI to do whatever they wanted with the network.
Seymour Rubenstein. So you got something here because there's very expensive dedicated word processors. You've got a general purpose.
And they were garbage because absolutely none of them could show you on the screen what it looked like when it printed.
None of them?
None of them.
So you had no preview, no capability of knowing ahead of time?
No, you had to print it and then look at what was wrong and then go back and fool around with it.
Wow, it's terrible.
Well, I thought it was terrible. And that's one of the things that I did with WordStar. The very first version of WordStar, I put a big ad out that says, what you see is what you get.
You invented WYSIWYG, too.
No.
No?
I invented what you see is what you get. Someone else decided to abbreviate it.
I wonder if I can find an old WordStar ad with what you see is what you get. I bet it's on the internet.
Well, I put it in Byte and Interface Age magazines.
Byte, which was published, coincidentally, in Nashua, New Hampshire.
Yes.
That's just pure coincidence, right?
Pure coincidence.
Why would they start a magazine up there? I don't know.
Beats me. I don't know. Can't imagine. It's got such a small population.
So, did it evolve with the dot command? Were these Wang commands, these original commands?
No, we made them up.
You had your own?
Yeah. We don't want to be accused of plagiarism. We had so much room for our creativity that we used it.
Right.
I mean, we invented the whole keyboard layout that we use commands with, because the keyboard manufacturers were so happy with function keys that nobody could ever type without taking their hands off the home key.
Right. So this is late 1978.
Yeah.
There is a small market of microcomputers. They're being made, IMSI, Altair, the Kromemco, the Sol. They're all out there. Processor technology, Sol.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is named after Sol.
Yes.
It was a guy.
Yes, that's right.
And are there computer trade shows at this point? How do you tell people?
Yes. In fact, I demonstrated the very first version of WordStar was I demonstrated at the April 1979 of the West Coast Computer Fair.
Oh, Jim Warren's West Coast Computer Fair.
Exactly. He was on roller skates.
Yep. Was that the first West Coast Computer Fair?
No, that wasn't the first West Coast Computer Fair. It was the first one that we demonstrated.
Yeah.
On, yeah.
And you demonstrated WordStar.
Right.
And what was the reaction?
Phenomenal. Phenomenal.
What did people? Why were they excited? What was it that they?
Well, because it provided a way of getting, it provided a reason for someone who is not a computer nerd to buy a computer.
Ah.
It was fantastically revolutionary.
The first killer app.
Right. But and it was not just a killer app, it was fundamental.
It was the app.
Because it was the app to do.
Yeah.
And that had a lot of ramifications. I believe that, I mean, no one's ever actually physically gave me credit for it, but I believe that's what launched Intel.
Yeah, probably right.
Not only launched Intel, it even launched Microsoft.
Well, absolutely launched Microsoft. Adam Sessler. This is a loaded question. Are you happy in gaming, or do you wish now that you were covering some other?
I like video games, especially in the past year. Look, since I've been at Rev3 Games, it is an internet-based programming, and I think when I was doing TV, I could engage with the internet. And I had the luxury of also taking a step back because I had to protect the barrier of the camera.
And all that, yeah.
And you know, the internet is an interesting place. And this being a year where Sony and Microsoft were battling, some of the behavior, some of the stuff that I had to sort of go through when I would say something that was not clearly to the liking of a certain group of people out there, it was a little disheartening.
As contentious as it gets for us when we say Windows versus Mac or Android versus iPhone, it's nothing compared to what happens in the. In fact, it's crazy.
No, it is. I mean, there was a period of time. I had the temerity when it was realized that Call of Duty on the Xbox One was an up-res 720p.
Right.
Where it was native 1080p
on the PS4.
On the PlayStation 4. I had actually seen quite a few games that were coming out. I couldn't talk about them yet because I was under an embargo.
Yeah.
But what I did in one of my editorials is I just kind of said, like, hey, I think that these companies kind of really screwed themselves because they were trying to say 60 frames a second, 1080p, and they made that out like that really is the gold standard, where really it is matters of design. You could have a very, very good-looking game at 720p, and you could have an ugly game at 1080p.
Right.
But because of what the debate was about the resolutions,
the companies framed the debate inappropriately, really.
Right. And I was just trying to say, like, hey, you know, I actually think 60 frames a second does completely change the experience playing a game, especially if it's a shooter. Resolution, I had seen the game Rise from Microsoft, and that's running at something called 900p. Brand new resolution I didn't even know about.
Heard of it, yeah.
And I would have never known that unless someone had told me.
Yeah.
And it was because of having seen that, I was like, you know, I think we're getting a little bit lost in the weeds with these numbers.
Oh, you don't say that.
Oh, yeah. I was a shill.
Yeah.
It was there were threats. It was just it was incessant. 35 pages on NeoGAF of just, you know, libel, slander,
really.
And
you read that stuff.
No, people were alerting me. They're like, this.
That's the problem. There's always going to be somebody who's going to tweet at you, Adam, did you read what they said?
Well, but also some of my colleagues were like, hey, all of us kind of go through this. They're like, you might want to be aware this one's seems to be spinning very much out of control.
This is a hot topic.
And it was like there are moments where I had to inform some of the people that sort of manned the door at my building. I'm like, can you not?
Did you think it was dangerous that you were at risk?
If you look at what happens in a riot or a mob situation, everyone's moving, and it just takes the one guy who might be seeing kind of the bluster of other people, but just doesn't see it only as that hot air. And I actually went back and called my business manager and said, hey, can we start to move things out of my name?
Wow.
It just, I had absolutely no idea.
You were in fear of your safety.
And it's also because when it happens on the internet, your reality gets skewed. I knew rationally that this was not the majority, but when the only thing,
one nut.
But also when the only thing that's being presented to you is this behavior, is this kind of caustic nature,
this is how
it's very hard to try to distinguish those two things from one another. That was just frustrating. And the other thing is the game industry. It's weird. There are times where I don't know if they want to be covered. Or if they would like to cut the press out of the equation and just go directly to the consumer. Where I'm finding that there are frustrations that seem odd and endemic that, I don't know if they're going to get much better. So I don't say I want to leave games or anything like that. But one thing that I always felt at G4, which they seem to never understand, is no one likes video games at the exclusion of all other things. And there's no reason that we can't broaden the conversation to other things that interest our viewers.
Alexis Ohanian is here. He's the founder of Reddit. When I read your CV, there's so many things he has done. It is really quite amazing. The founder of Reddit out of college. He then went on and started Hipmunk, which is still a great travel site. Bread Pig is Newman's Own for nerds, as he describes it. He has just published a new book called Without Their Permission. And I'm going to read the subtitle, How the 21st Century Will Be Made, Not Managed. So obviously he's an anarchist. He's also the ambassador to the East for Y Combinator. I think that's a great title.
Yeah, PG's good with things like that. They had, I came back from Armenia, went out to lunch with Paul and Jessica, and they were like, "Hey, we'd love for you to, be a partner at Y Combinator." And I said, "That is amazing. Like, thank you. You guys have done so much for me."
Well, did he not inspire you to start? As I remember, he inspired you to start Reddit, right?
Yeah. No, we had My Mobile Menu. It was what's the short name for it? And
that was pizza by fax.
I know. We were going to let people order food from their cell phone. This was 04.
We talked to Steve about that.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I'm now an investor in Order Ahead, which is the exact same idea.
But we have the internet
executed much better.
Yeah.
Yes. Just timing, right? And that's, we were lucky though, because Steve and I would have probably been working on that for a little while back in Charlottesville, Virginia, if it hadn't been for Paul and Jessica and Robert and Trevor, the founders of YC, rejecting us. Because
I didn't know they rejected you.
Yeah, we applied with My Mobile Menu. They rejected us. We got drunk that night. It was up at Harvard. And we were actually out drinking with a bunch of friends and friends of friends. We met some Harvard guys who were kind of bragging to us about having just gotten jobs at Lehman Brothers.
Oh, God.
And how did that turn out?
Oh.
But they were doing this, and my reaction, both out of like just drunkenness and I guess insecurity, was to tell them, oh yeah, well, we just got into this thing called Y Combinator, and we have this company called and it's going to be amazing. And I felt so terrible lying to them, so I drank a lot more.
Yeah.
And just tried to forget it all. And the next morning, Paul calls up, and he just says, we're on the train back to Virginia, and he's like, hey, we still don't like your idea. Okay, all right, but we like you guys.
Oh,
and if
that's
you and
good.
Steve are willing to change your idea,
that's good,
and come up with anything new in a browser, don't build anything on the mobile, just build something in a browser that solves your problem every day, something that you have, we'll let you in. So we go back to Boston, we sit with him for an hour, and we just brainstorm. And Steve had been using Slashdot for quite some time, and I was just using Tabs, this brand new invention in browsers, to read a bunch of news. And by the end of the conversation, Paul seemed to be satisfied with this idea that we had to just build what was new and interesting online, kind of user-generated thing. And he goes, that's it. You guys will build the front page of the internet.
Wow.
And we're just like, really? Like, you're going to give us money to do this? Like, all right, sucker. And
when they make the movie, Justin Timberlake will play Paul Graham. No, maybe tell you.
I want Justin Timberlake to play Paul.
Okay.
Anthony Michael Hall or Ryan Gosling will play Steve.
Oh, that's good. That's
good.
And
I get Christopher Walken.
Oh, you've clearly put some thought into this.
Yeah, no, as soon as Social Network came out, I was like, who do I want to play Steve?
You know that's the next Social Network. And if Aaron Sorkin isn't writing this movie now, he ought to get on the shtick. I'm gonna go talk to Dana Brunetti, the Trigger Street folks. This is the next Social Network. Forget that Zuckerberg man guy. Forget him. It's Ohanian all the way and Huffman. That's what I'm talking about.
Let's make this happen, Leo. You could please be my agent.
I love that scene. The scene where where you talk to the guys. And at the time, it seemed like they were kings of the world. We're going to Lehman Brothers, and your heart's on the ground because your startup was rejected by Paul Graham.
Yeah.
That is a great movie scene. And then they're out in the street, and you are Reddit. That's it for our best of. Thank you so much for joining me on Triangulation. It's been a great year. We look forward to 2014. Lots of wonderful guests. Now, next week, we're going to take the day off because it's New Year's Day, and I'll be exhausted after our 24 hours of New Year's. But the following week, Peter Krogh talks about the DAM book, the Digital Asset Management book, one of my favorite photographers. Lots more great interviews to come. And at a very new time, I almost said a very special time, but really there's nothing special at all about Monday afternoon at 1 p.m. That's just when we're recording it. Every Monday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 2100 UTC. From now on, that's the new time for Triangulation. I do hope you'll tune in live because, well, the reason we call it Triangulation is because it's me, our guest, and then you. You're the third leg of the stool. Your questions, your thoughts, your input is very valuable to us. So if you can, watch live on Mondays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. But if you can't, we've always got on-demand versions available for download at our website, twit.tv/TRI, and wherever fine your netcasts are distributed. Thanks for joining me. I hope you had a great 2013. Here's to a wonderful 2014. I'm Leo Laporte. We'll see you next time on Triangulation.